Hello, I'm Alma Angeles. We're moving to the next stage of the pandemic. As the world resets to the new normal, we find ourselves seeking the right balance between health and livelihood, constantly adjusting the boundaries between liberty and responsibility. Here are tonight's news. There can only be a new normal when areas in the country are no longer placed under community quarantine. That is according to the revised guidelines issued by the Interagency Task Force for the Management of Emerging Infectious Diseases. The IATF-EID earlier defined the General Community Quarantine, or GCQ, a relaxed community quarantine imposed by the national government, as the so-called new normal. Modified ECQ or MECQ is imposed in Metro Manila, Laguna, Bataan, Bulacan, Nueva Ecija, Pampanga, Zambales, and Angeles City until May 31. Take a look.
Quarantine. At ang NCR po, ang munisipyo ng Municipality of Pateros and Laguna ay nasa ilalim po ng Modified Enhanced Community Quarantine. Ang nadagdag po sa Modified ECQ ay ang mga probinsya ng Bataan, Bulacan, Nueva Ecija, Pampanga, Zambales, at Angeles City. Inilabas din po kahapon ng IATF ang Omnibus Guidelines on the Implementation of Community Quarantine in the Philippines, kung saan may kanya-kanyang guidelines na ang mga lugar na nasa ilalim ng Enhanced Community Quarantine, Modified Enhanced Community Quarantine, General Community Quarantine, at Modified General Community Quarantine. Ano po itong apat na ito? Ang Enhanced Community Quarantine po, ito ang pagpapatupad ng mga pansamantalang hakbang na nagpapataw ng mahigpit na limitasyon sa paggalaw at transportasyon ng mga tao. Kasama ang strict regulation of opening industries, provision of food and essential services, at heightened presence of uniformed personnel para ipatupad ang community quarantine protocols. Ang buong Luzon ay sumailalim po dito, at yung mga guidelines sa mga syudad na aking nabanggit kanina sa ECQ ay mananatili po. Bagamat nasa Cebu na lang po yung ECQ, ang Cebu City at ang Mandaue. Pangalawa po, ang Modified Enhanced Community Quarantine, at ito po ay umiiro ngayon sa Metro Manila. Ito ang transition phase, Metro Manila at saka sa Laguna po. No? Ito ay ang transition phase sa pagitan ng ECQ at GCQ, kung saan yung temporary measures ay nag-relax na tulad ng stringent limiting movement and transportation of people, strict regulation of operating industries, provision of food and essential services, at heightened presence of uniformed personnel. Ang NCR po at iba pang mga lugar na aking nabanggit kanina ay nasa ilalim ng MECQ simula ngayong araw at mananatili hanggang katapusan ng buwan. Kasama rin po rito yung mga nag-apilang mga bayan na po na nabanggit natin kanina. Kasama na po ang mga probinsya sa Central Luzon, maliban po ang probinsya ng Tarlac. Now, sumunod naman po ang General Community Quarantine. Ito ay tumutukoy sa pagpapatupad ng mga pansamantalang mga hakbang para malimitahan ang galaw at transportasyon, regulation of operating industries, and presence of uniformed personnel para ipatupad ang mga community protocol. Panghuli po, at ito po yung binigyan ng definition kahapon, ang Modified General Community Quarantine. Ito ang transition phase sa pagitan ng GCQ at ang tinatawag natin na New Normal, kung saan ang mga pansamantalang hakbang tulad ng limiting movement and transportation, regulation of operating industries, and presence of uniformed personnel ay marirelax na. Ito pong MGU ang bagong idinagdag ng IATF, at ito po ay tatalakayin ko ng mas detalyado sa Lunes. Sa ngayon, wala pong lugar sa Pilipinas ang nasa MGCQ at New Normal. Ano naman ang sinasabi natin New Normal po? New Normal ay tumutukoy sa mga bagong mga ugali, mga sitwasyon, at minimum public health standards na dapat natin makasanayan habang wala pa tayong malawakang pagbabakuna na magpapahinto sa COVID-19. Magiging second nature sa atin ang new normal, tulad ng pagbabawal ng malakihang pagtitipon-tipon. Sa uli kong dalawang press conference ay nabanggit ko po ang MECQ. Mayroon po tayong update sa bagay na ito. Ang aking babanggitin ay wala sa mga una kong sinabi sa aking nakaraang mga press briefing. Sa ilalim ng Category 3 Employment Activities ay naidagdag ang Recruitment and Placement Agencies for Overseas Employment under MECQ, which allows 50% operational capacity. Kasama rin po sa MECQ ang Firearms and Ammunition Trading Establishment, subject to strict regulation of the Firearms and Explosives Office. Pwede na rin po magbigay ng home religious services. Pansin niyo po, home religious services. Ang mga pare, mga imam, mga rabbi at iba pang religious ministers, provided meron pong proper health protocols gaya ng pagsuot ng mask at saka social distancing, temperature checks at iba pa po. Kasama na rin po ang swimming bilang isang non-contact sport na po pwedeng mapayagan po sa lugar na GCQ.
Meanwhile, Typhoon Ambo, international name Vong Fong, left a trail of destruction in Samar provinces, wounded 2 persons, and drove over 13,000 people away from their homes and stranded hundreds of travelers when it crossed the island on Thursday. Take a look. The Philippine National Police reported on Friday that 2 persons were injured due to flying debris when the typhoon made its first landfall in the province. Several structures were destroyed in the provinces of northern Samar and eastern Samar, while several major roads are not passable due to flooding, potential landslides, uprooted trees, and toppled electric posts, according to the PNP. Power outages hit 24 towns in northern Samar, 18 in Samar, 4 in eastern Samar, and 2 in Biliran due to damaged power transmission lines. The hardest hit areas are the towns of Bobon, Lawang, Lope de Vega, and Mondragon in northern Samar, and Arteche, San Policarpio, Jipapad, Oras, and Maslog in eastern Samar. Malacanang on Saturday vowed that the government will assist the families affected by Typhoon Ambo, international name Vong Fong. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque gave the assurance during the Laging Handa program aired on state-run PTV4. Thousands were displaced and some houses and establishments were destroyed. Power lines were cut in the wake of the devastation of Ambo. Ambo is the first typhoon to hit the country this year, and it has slightly weakened while moving northwest toward the coast of Ilocos provinces, according to the 11 a.m. weather bulletin issued by Pag-asa. Pag-asa said Ambo is likely to exit the Philippine area of responsibility on Monday afternoon. To the U.S. now, House Democrats narrowly pushed through the largest ever U.S. economic rescue package. But the coronavirus measure faces headwinds in the White House and Senate, where Republicans bemoan its $3 trillion price tag. Take a look. The HEROES Act, which passed largely along party lines, provides some $1 trillion for state and local governments, another round of cash disbursements to millions of hard-hit American families, funds for hospitals, hazard pay for health workers, and relief for devastated small businesses. In an attempt to counter the pandemic's devastating economic fallout, the 1,815-page measure also would extend food and unemployment aid, provide rent and mortgage support for struggling households, and pump millions of dollars into virus testing, tracing operations, and treatment. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi earlier said, quote, "We think this is a major investment in the lives of the American people and in the budgets of our states and localities." The legislation, which cleared the House on a vote of 208 to 199 with 14 Democrats and all but 1 Republican opposed, appears doomed in the Senate. Many Republicans branded it as an exorbitant liberal wish list packed with Democratic priorities like funding for vote-by-mail programs or marijuana studies and emergency checks for undocumented immigrants. It's not a stretch to say that this bill is nothing more than a Democratic policy agenda masquerading as a response to the coronavirus crisis. House Republican Tom Cole told colleagues the Pelosi package will never see the light of day in the Senate. Lindsey Graham, a Republican senator, added on Twitter after the House vote. In the Republican-controlled chamber, "We will work with the Trump administration to jumpstart the economy and to fund efforts to defeat COVID-19, it said. More than 36 million Americans have lost their jobs due to the coronavirus catastrophe and related business lockdown. To Pennsylvania, Governor Tom Wolf, a Democrat, lifted the restrictions in 13 counties, including the Pittsburgh area on Friday, and announced 12 more counties that could reopen starting on May 22nd. But he was not moving fast enough for some. Take a look.
We have working class people who are out of a paycheck, and he's allowing multinational corporations to continue functioning. Why are these multinationals allowed to continue to operate at the expense of small businesses? So it's killing Pennsylvania's small business and it's promoting multinational corporations, many of which function in the origin of the virus.
Frankly, I don't necessarily want to be here. I don't know a whole lot of other people who don't want to be here. We would rather be with our families or working or living our lives. But we're taking the measurable risk now to let the governor know that this situation is completely untenable.
President Trump is eager to reboot the devastated U.S. economy ahead of November, but has delivered mixed messages when it comes to reopening the country, while urging state governors to adhere to federal guidelines on reopening safely. He has also said they should relax restrictions. The United States has recorded the most deaths at 86,744. Lockdown measures in New York City are extended until May 28 under an executive order signed by State Governor Andrew Cuomo. Let's listen in.
You can come touch this table 3 hours from now and pick up the virus. I can walk into a store to pick up a package, not know that I have the virus, put my hand on a stainless steel counter. You can come in the store the next day, put your hand on that counter, and pick up the virus. I don't care how diligent the store owner is and how many masks you wear. That's how powerful this virus is. Well, it's only old people. No. Tell that to the families who have an 8-year-old and 7-year-old in the hospital. Tell that to the 21-year-old girl's family, where the 21-year-old girl passed away. Everyone is vulnerable to this virus. Everyone. And government can't keep you safe. Only you can keep yourself safe. But when you keep yourself safe, and I keep myself safe, that's the way we keep all of us safe. That's the story of life, and that's the story of where we are today, and that's the story of being New York tough, which is tough, but it's smart. First of all, the local governments have the guidelines on the compliance, so and the business owners have it, and any business that opens today in the regions that can open, they sign a compliance agreement, and that compliance agreement is kept on the premises. So if there's a violation, which should be enforced by the local governments, they have that business owner who agreed to operate under the following conditions, and they therefore violated that agreement, and they can be closed on that basis. To the extent we get any complaints, we forward them to the local government.
Now, the governor clarified the date at a press conference after signing an executive order on Thursday night that also mentioned June 13. Governor Cuomo said the Big Apple stay-at-home order would last to May 28 unless the city meets guidelines relating to death rates and new infections that would allow it to begin reopening earlier. He didn't explain what emergency measures would expire on June 13, but the order suggested they, in part, concerned the mandatory wearing of masks. Now, his announcement came as restrictions were eased in the state's 5 least populated regions, allowing businesses there to get back to work gradually. The World Health Organization said it is studying a possible link between COVID-19 and a rare inflammatory illness with symptoms similar to those of Kawasaki's disease that has sickened and killed children in Europe and the United States. Take a look.
This evening, WHO will release a scientific brief on multi-system inflammatory syndrome in children. In the past weeks, reports from Europe and North America have described a small number of children being admitted to intensive care units with a multi-system inflammatory condition with some features similar to Kawasaki's disease and toxic shock syndrome. Initial reports hypothesize that this syndrome may be related to COVID-19.
And so we're learning that it seems to be a very rare syndrome, but we need more information. And we need more information collected in a systematic way, because with the initial reports, we're getting a description of what this looks like, which is not always the same. And in some children, they've tested positive for COVID-19, but other children have not. So we don't know if this is associated with COVID-19 or not.
Another, I think, important point is, as the number of cases of any particular disease grows to a very large number, you start to potentially notice much rarer syndromes. So you may not notice the disease emerge in a small group of 10 or 20,000 cases, but if you get to 90 or 100 or 1 million cases, then what is a very rare potential side effect or consequence of the infection can become apparent. It doesn't mean that the disease is changing. It doesn't mean that the disease is changing in kids. What it means is, when you get a very large number of children with the disease, you will see a very rare occurrence happen. I think it's also important to understand that there are many potential drugs that can kill a virus in a test tube. And that's what we call in vitro. It means that you can actually kill a virus by directly applying the drug to the virus, and you can observe how it interferes with the virus function. It's a very different thing to take that drug and then put it into a human. Therefore, the difference between a drug's effect on a virus out of the body and then that drug's capacity to affect the progress of the virus in a body is very different, and that's why trials are very important.
Europe and the United States have seen sharp surges in recent weeks of a severe immune disorder in children linked to COVID-19, according to health authorities, sounding an alarm. At least 5 children, 3 in New York and 1 each in France and Britain, have died from the syndrome, and at least 2 other deaths are suspect. Up to now, COVID-19, with 4.5 million confirmed cases worldwide and more than 300,000 deaths, has largely spared small children and teens, though many are thought to have been infected without showing symptoms. But the new illness, while still very rare by comparison, suggests that no age bracket is safe. Europe has seen some 230 suspected cases of so-called pediatric inflammatory multi-system syndrome, or PIMS, in children up to 14 years old, the European Center for Disease Prevention and Control said on Friday. In the U.S., where well over 100 cases have been identified in the New York area, health authorities have issued an alert for the mysterious illness. U.S. President Donald Trump said he hopes to have a COVID-19 vaccine available by the end of the year. Take a look.
Another essential pillar of our strategy to keep America open is the development of effective treatments and vaccines as quickly as possible. I want to see if we can do that very quickly. We're looking to, when I say quickly, we're looking to get it by the end of the year if we can, maybe before. We're doing tremendously well. Its objective is to finish developing and then to manufacture and distribute a proven coronavirus vaccine as fast as possible. Again, in preparation for this initiative, experts throughout the government have been collaborating to evaluate roughly 100 vaccine candidates from all over the world. They have identified 14 that they believe are the most promising, and they're working to narrow that list still further. So while we accelerate the final phases of vaccine trials, Operation Warp Speed will be simultaneously accelerating its manufacturing process. In other words, we're getting ready so that when we get the good word that we have the vaccine, we have the formula, we have what we need, we're ready to go, as opposed to taking years to gear up. We're gearing up. It's risky, it's expensive, but we'll be saving massive amounts of time. We'll be saving years. When a vaccine is ready, the U.S. government will deploy every plane, truck, and soldier required to help distribute it to the American people as quickly as possible. Vaccine or no vaccine, we're back. and we're starting the process. And in many cases, they don't have vaccines, and a virus or a flu comes, and you fight through. Last thing anybody's looking for is profit in terms of what we're doing. Every company, they want to get it out. We've had that. We've had a great experience on Remdesivir. We've had a great experience on everything we've done. People are looking to come up with the answer. They're not looking in, typically they're saying, oh, how much am I going to make? How much? They really have been. There's been a great spirit on this. They want to get to the bottom of it, and I think we'll be able to do that.
Scientists have cautioned that it's possible that despite worldwide efforts, it's possible that an effective vaccine may never be found, or that some vaccines could backfire and make people more, not less, susceptible to infection. Scientists have never previously developed a successful vaccine for any kind of coronavirus that infects humans. Efforts that were underway against the SARS coronavirus were halted early because that disease was contained after infecting about 8,000 people, and it was therefore not judged profitable to pursue. Vaccines do exist for animal coronaviruses, for example, a type of coronavirus that infects chickens that is used by farmers. However, it also kills a certain percentage of chickens, and such an outcome would not be acceptable in humans. The Korea Centers for Disease Control and Prevention said South Korea reported 19 new cases, the lowest in a week, as cluster infections from Itaewon, Seoul showed signs of slowing down. It said the daily infections fell back to below 20 for the first time in 7 days. Itaewon has emerged as a hotbed for cluster infections, with the number of cases tied to bars and clubs in the multicultural district reaching at least 153 as of late Friday. Korea had flattened the infection curve with its massive testing and contact tracing since its first case last January 20. The number of daily new infections, which once peaked at 909, fell to a single-digit figure in the first week of May. However, the government is struggling to stem a potential second wave of infections since it eased restrictions. Following 45 days of stricter social distancing, Korea switched to an everyday life quarantine scheme on May 6 to enable citizens to carry out social and economic activities under quarantine rules. Japan's prime minister lifted a state of emergency imposed due to the coronavirus for the majority of the country, but kept it in place for top cities Tokyo and Osaka after fears the virus could explode in Japan. New infections have come down sharply, enabling the government to end the measure in 39 out of 47 prefectures before it was due to expire on May 31st. Take a look.
感染者の増加スピードが高まってくれば、残念ながら2度目の緊急事態宣言もあり得る。
But with new cases still emerging daily in Tokyo and Osaka and the northern island of Hokkaido, the Prime Minister told reporters in a televised news conference that a state of emergency would be kept in place for those regions. He also urged Japan's 126 million people to remain alert to prevent a possible fresh outbreak. Japan's state of emergency falls far short of the toughest measures seen in parts of Europe and the U.S. It allows local governors to urge people to stay at home and call on businesses to remain shut. But officials cannot compel citizens to comply, and there are no punishments for those who fail to do so. Schools in much of the country closed down even before the emergency was declared on April 7 in Tokyo and 6 other regions before being expanded nationwide. Japan's virus outbreak remains small compared with those seen in parts of Europe and the U.S., with a little over 16,000 confirmed infections recorded and almost 700 deaths. Meanwhile, residents of Wuhan, China's pandemic epicenter, queued up across the city to be tested for the coronavirus after a new cluster of cases sparked a mass screening campaign. Crowds at Wuhan clinics fear the COVID-19 testing could rekindle the disease. Take a look.
这次政府就推行的这个武汉市整个市，然后都做一个核酸检测，其实我觉得对大家都是一个好事情，因为这一方面来说，对一个是政府大数据的统计，然后对于核酸的这个疫情防控的帮助，再一个其实也是对每个人身体对自己对自己身体健康的一个知情权嘛。有很多人就是没有做过，不知道自己到底有没有，总在担心或者怎么样。其实像我们自己做过的就知道，做过了之后，然后其实对心理的放松有一定的放松，然后其实每个人也不用担心，因为现在毕竟已经过了这么长时间，然后政府居然敢这么做的话，肯定是有信心，然后也有。
The previously unknown contagion emerged in Wuhan in late 2019, prompting the Chinese government to impose a tight lockdown on the city on January 23, isolating the industrial and transport center from the rest of the country and confining residents to their homes. According to government figures, more than 3,800 people have died from COVID-19 in the city, accounting for the vast majority of fatalities in China. The quarantine was only fully lifted in early April, and life is slowly returning to normal. But Wuhan was given a fresh jolt when several new local infections emerged last weekend, after more than a month in which none were reported. Fearful of reliving the virus nightmare, officials have launched a drive to conduct nucleic acid tests on the city's entire population. And after 2 months of closure due to the measures put in place by the Austrian government to combat the spread of the new coronavirus, the famous Viennese cafes reopened their doors to the public. Founded in 1880, Café Sperl is a traditional Viennese cafe located at Gumbendorfer Strasse 11 in the 6th district of Vienna, Austria. The cafe is on the Austrian Register of Historic Places. The place was featured in 2 movies, Before Sunrise in 1995 and A Dangerous Method in 2011. And beaches on the Mediterranean coast are starting to reopen as France looks forward to its first weekend post-lockdown since the coronavirus crisis began. On Saturday, the beach at Almanari in the Var is one of the first to reopen, albeit with caveats: no sunbathing, picnicking, or sports, and team games. Beach season is around the corner, and all along Italy's vast coastlines, preparations have begun to attract sun worshippers and their wallets while safeguarding against the lingering coronavirus. Most beaches throughout the country remain off limits along some stretches of seafront. However, the sight of colorful, carefully spaced parasols and lounge chairs in the sand hint at economic activity waiting anxiously to restart. On the Adriatic coast, the hotels, restaurants, and seaside resorts flanking the beaches are a vital part of the regional economy, as flocks of tourists, both Italian and international, vie for a spot in the sun. From anger over lockdown measures to a purported vaccine plan by Bill Gates, a growing wave of demonstrations in Germany by conspiracy theorists, extremists, and anti-vaxxers has alarmed even Chancellor Angela Merkel. Initially starting as a handful of protesters decrying tough restrictions on public life to halt transmission of the coronavirus, the protests have swelled in recent weeks to gatherings of thousands in major German cities. Thousands are set to mass again in Stuttgart, Munich, and Berlin on Saturday, with police out in force after some protests turned violent. The growing demonstrations have sparked comparison to the anti-Muslim Pegida marches at the height of Europe's refugee crisis in 2015, raising concerns over whether the strong support that Chancellor Angela Merkel is currently enjoying due to her handling of the virus crisis could evaporate. A recent poll commissioned by the Spiegel News magazine found that almost 1 in 4 Germans surveyed voiced understanding for the demonstrations. The development has shocked the political establishment, with German Chancellor Angela Merkel reportedly telling top brass of her center-right CDU party on the worrying trend that may bear some hallmarks of Russia's disinformation campaign. Hong Kong's police watchdog exonerated officers for their handling of violent democracy protests last year, concluding that public anger towards the city's force was the result of online smear campaigns. The report by the Independent Police Complaints Council, or IPCC, into the protest said accusations of brutality against police had become a weapon of political protest and cleared the force of any major wrongdoing. Take a look.
8 months that we have seen, in fact, protests which originally were peaceful, they then degenerated into violent protests, using weapons of all kinds, in fact, against police and others. Property was destroyed. And this was the situation that our police force was faced with. When they are faced with this situation, of course, they have to enforce the law and they have to protect themselves. And that is the situation that we had in Hong Kong. And I would think, therefore, that we have to be careful and fair to the police force in this case, is that they did have a very, very difficult situation to deal with, and they had to enforce the law.
Hong Kong was battered by 7 months of democracy protests last year that upended the city's reputation for stability and left it deeply polarized. The protests were initially sparked by a now-scrapped bill to allow extraditions to China's party-controlled courts, but they soon snowballed into a popular revolt against Beijing's rule after years of rising fears that the city's freedoms were slipping. Millions attended peaceful marches, but violence routinely broke out, with mass protesters throwing petrol bombs and rocks against riot police armed with tear gas and rubber bullets. International and local rights groups have accused police of using excessive force, while viral videos of officers beating protesters during arrests saturated social media and intensified public anger. But the IPCC report said police were not to be blamed for the public animosity they faced. A man is caught on CCTV walking through a closed Sydney museum, snapping selfies with displays and wandering the halls in a late-night visit, which has left local police searching for this intruder. Local police say the man, who climbed a scaffold to get in, stole a cowboy hat and a picture from a wall before leaving the Australian Museum. Take a look.
Look, he was in there for about 40 minutes. He's wandered through some of the internal areas, checked some lockers and doors, and yeah, he's certainly enjoyed his night at the museum. It's very serious. We shouldn't make light of this. He's entered into a place of significance. We're lucky he hasn't damaged any historical artefacts or anything that's expensive in there. But if this gentleman's watching, all I can say is it's not going to be a movie producer knocking on his door. The New South Wales Police will be knocking very shortly.
Now, as you can see here, the intruder actually, he climbed up the scaffolding into the Australian Museum at around 1 a.m. last Sunday, and then he went on a leisurely wander through the empty building. Now, Detective Chief Inspector Sean Hannay said Friday security cameras caught the man, and he was taking photos with displays, selfies, posing with his head inside the jaws of a Tyrannosaurus skull, and then searching the cupboards. The man eventually left the museum with a hat and a picture from a wall, according to officers. The Australia Museum has been closed since last year for renovations, and police believe the refurbishment work made his entry easier. Other museums and galleries around Australia are also closed as part of the coronavirus lockdown. Eagle News will be right back. Stay tuned. Britain and the EU in post-Brexit trade talks, and they are in a stalemate. Let's get the latest from Giancarlo Matera. Hello, Gian. Welcome to the program.
Hello, Alma. Yes, the European Union and Britain have ended their latest round of post-Brexit trade talks in a state of deadlock this Friday, with both sides urging the other to fundamentally change its strategy. The EU negotiator, Michel Barnier, said that he was disappointed by Britain's lack of ambition, but he also accused London of seeking the benefits of a single market without its responsibilities. Here in London, at the end of the week of haggling by video conferencing, Barnier's UK counterpart, David Frost, agreed that not a lot had been achieved. Barnier said that no progress has been possible on the more difficult subjects. As we know, Britain left the European Union on January 31, and the sides have until the end of this year to agree on the finer details, barring an extension that our British Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, has repeatedly ruled out. There now remains only one more round of talks before the end of June deadline to decide whether the talks are worth continuing. The talks have stumbled on the same issues ever since they launched in March, just ahead of the coronavirus pandemic that has now paralyzed public life and devastated the European and the EU economies. The EU insists any deal must include binding the UK's commitment to maintain EU standards, such as the health, safety, state aid, and on the environment, commonly known as keeping the level playing field. But Britain refuses to continue to accept that it should be forming any part of this legal agreement, insisting that it has its newfound freedom after 40 years of being tied to the EU rules. Britain insists it wants nothing more in its trade deal than the EU offers other partners such as Canada and Japan, while Barnier says that it is in fact asking for much more. Britain also rejects any mention of the jurisdiction of the European Court of Justice or the European Convention on Human Rights here in the UK, a demand that it says is unnecessary and belittling. The Europeans then argue that Britain's geographical proximity and close business connections to the continent make more safeguards necessary than those in the traditional trade deals. We will be keeping you a close eye on the progress of the deals and the progress made in the next rounds of negotiations.
And indeed, we will be waiting for that, Gian. But on a personal note, how are you doing and how are you coping? How's the family?
We're doing good. Actually, the family have just decided to go for a walk this weekend because the latest restrictions have been lifted and eased here in the UK. You are now allowed to have as much outdoor exercise as you want. It's not restricted to 1 hour anymore as it was previously. So good weather this weekend. A lot of people are planning to go out, travel to the coastline or to the national parks. So the government is a bit worried about that, actually.
But what new normals are in place? What new normal measures are in place, though?
The normal measures now in place, outdoor activities is allowed. Those who cannot work from home, they're being advised to now go to work. And they're also advised to try to avoid as much as possible public transport.
Social distancing, masks?
Yes, it's been advised now. The UK government is starting to advise. Previously, they hadn't mentioned the benefits of wearing a mask outdoors, but now they're saying to please keep the 2 meter distance that they have implemented and to wear face masks as much as possible.
All right, thank you very much. Yes, Gian. Thank you so much. Yes.
I'm Jacob Matera from our London Bureau, and we live in interesting times.
Thank you, Gian. Okay, here in Manila, Dr. Louis Ocampo is giving sacks of rice to the needy during this pandemic. And Dr. Louis Ocampo joins us live. Hello, Dr. Louis. How are you doing? Kumusta po kayo? Okay, Dr. Louis, can you unmute your audio?
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I'm here in, yeah.
Hello, Dr. Louis. Good to see you po.
Yeah, opo. Actually, I'm here in Laguna. Still, Laguna is also a part of the modified ECQ. So it's so hard for us to go out.
So, dyan po ba sa Laguna, you're under ECQ. Yes, that's right. And so you're not going out for now. Pero you are giving out sacks of rice even though you are at home. Pwede pong pakikwento sa amin kung ano po itong ginagawa niyong ito. Ba't binibigay niyo lang po ba ito?
Well, because of this pandemic problem, a lot of neighbors here don't have any money to support their family. Instead, in order for us to help them, we give them the sacks of rice, but not only a gift, but need to pay. But they need to pay 2 gifts. First payment is that they need to say thank you, and the second payment is they need to help other people as well. So ini-encourage po natin yung mga tao na hindi lang po sila tumatanggap ng bigay, kundi we encourage them to also help other people as well.
So parang nire-replicate po yung good works na ginagawa nyo. Ganun po. Parang, so walang bayad na pera. So thank you, 2 gives, thank you. At saka, they have to, the second one is?
The second is they need to help other people as well.
Okay. So, baka makuha natin yung mga ibang reactions nila. Can we play them?
Thank you po sa inyo.
At saka?
Pwede din po makatulong sa iba.
Ayan. Ano masasabi mo sa bigas na yan?
Malaking tulong talaga, sir. Sa ngayon.
2 gives yan.
Bahala na, sir. Marami na kang utang sa'yo.
Paunang bayad? Anong unang bayad mo niyan?
Ay, salamat muna.
Thank you. Yan. Pangalawang bayad?
Ayun, bibigay sa iba.
Tutulong ka din sa iba. Okay. Ano masasabi mo sa bigas na yan?
Thank you po.
Unang bayad mo yon. Pangalawang bayad?
Tutulong din po sa iba.
Ayan. Ano masasabi niyo sa tulong na bigas?
Maraming salamat po. At malaking tulong po to sa amin. Sana dumami pa ang matulungan nyo.
Ano mo na pambayad niyan?
Salamat po at pagtulong din sa kapwa.
Ayan, salamat. Ano masasabi mo, te?
Thank you po kasi makakatulong po to habang lockdown.
Naka-lockdown. Ayan. Paano mo to babayaran?
Thank you po sa inyo.
At saka?
Pwede din po makatulong sa iba.
Ayan. Ano masasabi mo sa bigas na yan?
May I ask you, bakit naisip niyo po ito? Paano niyo naisip itong magandang gawain na ito? How did you come up with this po?
Ang ginawa niya, because most of the people are really waiting for someone who can help them, but it's very important for us to encourage someone not only waiting for the things that they can receive, but also if they have something, they are also obliged or they are also encouraged to help other people as well. So this is what the concept of pay it forward. So if someone help you, you should also help other people. So that's the concept. You know, because of that incident, because of that program,
yes,
a lot of them are helping their neighbors as well. And sometimes when I saw them, they give me something like banana or kamote or anything. So it develops the art of giving.
Yes.
So kinakailangan po maging lahat naging mapagbigay, hindi lang po yung what they can receive, but also what they can help to their neighbors as well.
So the good deed is replicated po. Ang galing po, ano?
Ano masasabi niyo sa tulong na bigas?
Opo. Kasi sa panahon ngayon, talagang lahat hirap, marami pong walang trabaho. And with that move, it also cascaded to some of our friends.
Yes.
That they also help for those who have their neighbors who are in need, all they need to do is just help. Kasi pagka po tumulong tayo, there's no such thing as small or a big help.
all of the, if it's health, it's big. It's oh.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Louie. Last message po sa lahat po ng nanonood ngayon sa inyo.
Keep safe po, mag-ingat po ang bawat isa po sa atin, panatiliin po natin na maging warrior tayo always. Huwag po tayo magpapatalo because most of us are becoming a warrior. Don't be a warrior, be a warrior. Kakaya natin to, mapaglalampasan natin ito, magtiwala lang po tayo sa ating Panginoon Diyos at magtulong-tulong po tayo kung kahit konti, kung meron po tayong mga pwedeng maitulong.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Louie, for your time. Stay safe, stay healthy, and keep doing good po. Salamat po sa inyo. Thank you. All right, Beijing has urged the United States to stop the unreasonable suppression of Huawei and Chinese enterprises after Washington announced new export controls to restrict the tech giant's access to semiconductor technology. A new escalation in the U.S.-China battle for global technological dominance. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs said in a statement Saturday, quote, the Chinese government will firmly uphold Chinese firms' legitimate and legal rights and interests. The ministry said the Trump administration's actions destroy global manufacturing supply and value chains. The U.S. Commerce Department said Friday the controls would narrowly and strategically target Huawei's acquisition of semiconductors that are the direct product of certain U.S. software and technology. U.S. officials have repeatedly accused the Chinese technology giant of stealing American trade secrets and aiding China's espionage efforts, ramping up tensions with the rival superpower, while both sides were involved in a long-simmering trade war. As a result, Huawei has increasingly relied on domestically manufactured technology, but the latest rules will also ban foreign firms that use U.S. technology from shipping semiconductors to Huawei without U.S. permission. The new restrictions will cut off Huawei's access to one of its major supplies, the Taiwanese chip maker TSMC, which also manufactures chips for Apple and other tech firms. The U.S. last year banned Huawei from using U.S. manufactured semiconductors in their products. China has threatened retaliation against the U.S. for the move, including imposing restrictions on major U.S. firms and putting them on an unreliable entity list, according to an anonymous government source quoted in the Communist Party tabloid Global Times on Friday. Now, the report also said U.S. tech giants Apple, Cisco, Qualcomm, and plane maker Boeing are among the firms that may be targeted. U.S. department store JCPenney, which has not turned a profit since 2011, on Friday became the latest American retailer to be pushed into bankruptcy by the coronavirus pandemic. The iconic business said it was filing for Chapter 11, a mechanism which allows the company that can no longer pay its debts to restructure. The group, based in Plano, Texas, will close some stores across the U.S. as a result. Now it has $500 million in cash and has received financing commitments of $900 million from lenders. The company missed a debt interest payment in April, fueling rumors of an impending bankruptcy. Its collapse follows other retail bankruptcies this month, including J.Crew, the Neiman Marcus Group, and the designer men's clothing brand John Varvatos. But JCPenney represents the biggest casualty by far based on the number of locations, with stores that are anchors at many American malls with nearly 85,000 employees. Elizabeth City turns to technology in enforcing social distancing. Reporting from New Jersey, here's El Aguilar.
New Jersey is one of the hardest hit states in the U.S. with positive COVID cases next to New York State. In the city of Elizabeth alone, more than 4,000 cases are open, more or less 400 total deaths related to coronavirus, and nearly 1,000 cases have been closed. The continuous campaign of the local officials to practice social distancing has intensified to help flatten the curve.
This virus is extremely dangerous. No one is immune from the virus. Whether you are young or whether you are a senior citizen, this virus does not discriminate. The only way to beat the virus at the current time is to continually wash your hands, wear a face mask when you're out in public, and 6 feet of separation. There can be no parties of 10 people or more. There can be no social interaction. It must be as minimal as possible. And if you have to go to a doctor, you have to go to the supermarket or get your essentials, wear a mask, wear gloves if necessary, and as soon as you return home, wash your hands thoroughly and continue that process. And we can beat this collectively, but we all have to work together to do it.
The city turns to technology by deploying drones that announces a message for people to keep their distance.
We currently have 5 drones that are working strictly on COVID-19 issues. These drones go throughout the city of Elizabeth whenever there's a complaint or a call, whether it be in a park, on the river trail, in between buildings, areas that are very difficult for the police to reach. The drones then go to that location and they spread a message of social distance in both English and Spanish.
Drones are deployed to areas that are unreachable by the police. There are some oppositions to these drones. In an interview with Elizabeth Mayor Chris Bolridge, he clarified that these drones are not out there to peek into anyone's privacy or go to people's homes, but only to save lives and to tell people to stop gathering, disperse, and go home.
And the drones spread the message, and then hopefully people will listen and they'll separate, and that would avoid a summons.
Violators will be fined up to $1,000.
We're hopeful that these drones can encourage people to socially separate, and so therefore it helps flatten the curve. It helps get less people sick. And I've told many people that if these drones just save one life, it is worth the experiment here in the city of Elizabeth.
According to New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy in his daily briefing, effective Monday, May 18th, non-essential businesses in New Jersey will be allowed to operate for curbside pickup only, and non-essential construction will resume. Events such as religious services, drive-in movies, and other gatherings will be allowed, but participants must remain in their cars. Organizers who are not in vehicles must follow social distancing and wear face coverings.
Frankly, I think it's important that people keep social distance. It's been a big education process over the last week. In the city of Elizabeth in early April, we were averaging 180, 190 new cases every single day. So over the last week, we were averaging 50 and 40 new cases a day. This week, we're averaging about 20 new cases a day. So the social distance is working.
With some businesses gearing up to open soon, Mayor Bolridge encouraged residents to support mom-and-pop stores versus big chain companies to help boost the city's economy and to make shoppers feel more at ease.
I think people would feel much safer in their local hardware store than going to a Lowe's or a Home Depot. And I think it's important that we start to get back to some of this local retail and have it available in a very safe and efficient way that mandates social distance.
Since middle of March, many local businesses have shut down. Some restaurants and grocery stores have limited services. Hours of operation have changed to comply to the state's temporary mandate to avoid the spread of coronavirus and to help flatten the curve. And to get these businesses back on track,
we have sent out word to the local business community and to apply for this. And these grants, up to $10,000 loans as well as grants, are going to start to be issued to some of these companies in the middle of June and July in order to maintain payroll, to help with the rent, to help get businesses back on their feet, especially some of these restaurants that are operating takeout. They're still employing people, and we need to make sure that they can continue in order to not only feed the community of our city, but to make sure that the unemployment levels, or at least subside somewhat.
For Eagle News, El Aguilar, Elizabeth, New Jersey, we live.
Filipino prospect Kai Soto has decided to bypass U.S. college basketball and sign with a development G League team for the next season. The 7'2" center has signed with a new G League team that is unaffiliated with any NBA franchise. The new club does not have a name. Now, let's take a look back. Here was an exclusive interview with him from our Vegas bureau way back when he was invited to participate in the NBA's Basketball Without Borders in the U.S. Let's listen in.
It starts off with my family, my dad, because, my dad sacrificed everything. He actually coached 2 teams in the Philippines, but he sacrificed that to help me reach my goal and my dream. So I just wake up every morning thinking of my dad, my mom, and 2 of my younger siblings. All of them transferred with me here in America, so I think that's more than enough inspiration for me. And second thing, I still have a big family in my country, and I still have a lot of Filipinos that believe in me. So, right now, I really watch a lot of Nikola Jokic, Anthony Davis, Kristaps Porzingis, those guys. I'm just trying to learn from all of the players in the NBA and just trying my best to mix it into one. I just want to thank every single Filipino that's been supporting me, and I won't let you down. I promise you, I always try my best, and I love you all.
Now, Soto joins other high school recruits, Jalen Green, Isaiah Todd, and Daishan Nix on the next team. Soto is trying to become the first homegrown Filipino player drafted in the NBA. Green grew up in the U.S. but can trace his roots to the Philippines. Soto, who turned 18 on Monday, spent this past season at a development academy in Atlanta, and he is eligible for the 2021 NBA entry draft. Raymond Townsend, who played for the Golden State Warriors in the 1980s, was the first player with Philippine heritage to play in the NBA. Meet Lorenzo Sa, and he started an Instagram account at the beginning of the UK's lockdown, for which he creates a version of the COVID-19 virus each day out of fruit, vegetables, and household items. And he's now kept up his challenge on @COVID-19 replicas for nearly 60 days straight, and says it's a comment on sustainability as well as an enjoyable creative outlet. Take a look.
So the idea started a bit randomly because I have a cactus at the house, one of these beautiful round ones, and it sat there at me, and I looked at it, and it made me think of all these images that we were seeing of COVIDs. And so I had some felt balls, I put them on the cactus, and it was like, oh my God, this is COVID-19. So of COVID and I think we're now at day 55. I have no idea how I'm going to keep going. We now have COVIDs that are burnt. In the next few days, I'm going to do an iced version of one. We're using light bulbs, etc. So, but yeah, it's fun. Yeah. Again, beef is highly pollutant, and fruits and vegetables. Everything is a bit of pollutant, so nothing is pollutant-free, but they're much better for the environment. Plus, they're much better for your health. We're talking about it's health, it's environment, it's local communities that you actually support by basically shopping there and not shopping at big, chains. So, yeah, look, I think having a project is key in mental health, and I think this has helped my mental health. I'm a very social person, and so I needed something that helped me divert the absence of something that was important for me, which was the social connection to people. I think, it's interesting. We try really hard to eat all of them. The only ones we haven't really, I think it's 1 or 2, and one is a olive we basically incinerated with incense, so we didn't eat that one.
And in time of physical and emotional distance, we give importance to the unsung service delivered by our frontliners. Our news correspondents positioned all over the world. Without them, we would not have the eagle-eye focus on the facts of this pandemic and its continuing repercussions on our lives. To our international correspondents, thank you for staying in touch with our viewers. Stay safe, protect yourselves and others. Good night. I'm Alma Angeles. We live in interesting times.